Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Generation Prodigies Teen Talk. And of course, as usual, we are in for a treat. And so, without further ado, let me introduce our teen host on tonight, Miss Jared Day. Hey, Jared Day.
Hi everyone. How are you guys doing? I hope everybody had a good dinner. Hope everybody did well. Well, let's start getting in there. Good evening. I'm sorry. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Teen Talk with Generation Prodigy. My name is Jared A, and I will be your teen host for tonight. Our guest for tonight is our new host, mentor, and program officer, Mr. Keith. Oh wait, sorry, Mr. Keith James the third. Mr. Mr. James is also a school teacher and a founder of the Narrow Path. I want to say that correctly. Narrow Path Initiative. He will lead our discussion with this evening on life back in school. So let's get started. Hello, Mr. James. How are you?
Good afternoon. Well, good evening. Good evening, Jared. Hey,
Good evening.
I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine.
Thank you for having me. It's always a blessing. Looking forward to the conversation today.
Looking forward to what you have to say to us teens. So, what would you like to tell us teens or any teens that's struggling, or what is your motivation that you want to tell us?
Oh, motivation. That's always that's always an interesting topic for me. I would say it just depends, because everybody is always in a different season of their life. So I would say a simple motivation, something that we all know, something that is always in the back of our minds, is just always just to keep on pushing, no matter what. Never give up, man. Because at the end of the day, only you can accomplish your dream. So that'll be my beginning motivation for anybody just joining on, and yourself, and myself.
Yes. So, what would you like to tell us, like your background, or how you get to what your stage, or why you want to work with teens, or anything?
Yeah, sure. So my background, I have a English and philosophy degree from Tulane University. Moved to after college, I moved to Missouri actually to attend seminary, but seminary got too expensive, as some of you guys will find out that college is really expensive. So I decided to take a break until I could save up enough money, and I started working in the school system. Right now, I'm teaching at Summit Christian Academy. I teach high school English, and I also teach high school debate as well. And so within these fields, I always knew that God called me to a ministry to serve with people. So whether that's teaching people in church, Sunday school, just serving people in the hospitality industry, or just doing anything. I know that my life has been one that's been called to work with people. So uh, I wanted to use my youth, if I could say it that way, use my young vigor and my young energy in order to pour back into the next generation. The Bible says that those that generations not yet born will praise His name. And so to me, it was like, what better way than I can pour into the next generation than to teach those people, teach young people about God so that they can praise His name and then carry that message on to the next generation. So that's why I got involved with the youth. It's like pouring into the future before it even gets here.
So, what made you want to be a school teacher?
Ooh, so many things, so many things. I would say uh, my first reason is a little bit from what I just mentioned, that I just wanted to pour back into the kids. But then secondly, like you know, being a teacher, everybody always think that I'm the only one that's teaching. But truthfully, is the students do a lot of teaching as well, and I have an insatiable knowledge for learning. So it's a lot of things that I can learn from your peers and also people younger than yourself. And so to be in a classroom is to not only teach and to pour out the little things that I do know, but to then have to be taught by 30 different students in the course of one classroom. That's what I'm excited about. Just learning everything and anything that the kids can teach me to better prepare me to do whatever God is calling me to do.
That's that's great. Um, Tell us a little more what a founder of a Narrow Path Initiative is.
Yes, yes, yes. So Narrow Path Initiative is a twofold organization. nonprofit actually. So the first half is the narrow path, and we see in Matthew, Jesus talks about this narrow path and how so many few people find this narrow path. So on one hand, the narrow path is to teach people about the triune God, and to help them find this road, this narrow path, and then walk it until they meet Him. But then secondly, is also to help people who are already on this path to stay on this path and to keep on pushing. So that's first and foremost. That's our main priority, to help people get a real clear, almost like as looking through glass, if I could say it that way, understanding of who God of the Bible is. And then the second part of it is our justice and mercy ministries that we do. And one of the main things that make up our justice and mercy ministries is education. Because we believe that any revolution is going to come on the back end of education. So we're about educating people on things. We have some programs like the Constitution, where we taken the Constitution and made it into words and into a language that's palpable, but also easily able to be digested by the common person in America, so that they can understand their rights. We have devotions on the website. We have numerous blogs, whether it's about relationships, whether it's about self, whether it's about the world. Our main purpose in this season is just to educate people as best as we can in as many ways as we can.
Thank you. Yeah, because I know for my family, education is key. Education is the number one goal. Everyone's going to college. We don't have a choice to. So I have one question: is what advice would you give us teens about returning back to school?
Cool. Great question. So I give two pieces of advice. The first piece of advice I would say is, more fundamental to human life, greater than food, greater than money, greater than shelter, anything, is human friendships. And so I would say that my first piece of advice would be, as you guys go back to school, be intentional about making new friends, especially befriending people that don't look like you, because that's what life is about. I think diversity, one of the things that you're gonna learn, and every other young person is gonna learn as they grow, is that education includes diversity as well. And when you are in a diverse environment, it's then where you can flourish more. You can learn more about yourself, and that you can be a better teacher. You can be a better student, or you can better be able to be equipped to do whatever it is that God is calling you to do. And so I would say, again, like the central message of the teachings of Jesus is an emphasis upon, relationships to individual to individual. So be intentional. My first piece of advice would be intentional about making new friends. We've been in a season where we've been isolated in our rooms, hiding behind our telephones for the last year and a half. So I think a new friend, it won't hurt you at all. Then my second piece of advice, I would say, is just, and it's kind of tied into this last piece of advice. Everybody has different perspectives on COVID, and everybody has different perspectives on like how dangerous it is. And so I would say, just be compassionate, be sympathetic. If a person says, "Nah, I don't want to have any hugs," or "I don't want to shake any hands," or "I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that," I don't think that should be something that a person should be debated over. Right? They should just be respected and moving, and the conversation should move along.
Thank you for answering my question. I also have another question. How has COVID impacted you as a teacher, and how did it impact your students?
Cool. Great question. So, impacting me as a teacher, I would say it made me more versatile, if I could say it that way, because certain things that the kids were going through, I had to be able to adjust. One of the things that teachers go through is the planning period. We'll spend weeks or we'll spend months in advance planning for at least for the next 2 to 3 weeks at a time. And so when COVID happened, it was kind of like a random life event that shifted, at least for the teachers, at least. And it says that, okay, this plan, this programming that you had, it's not going to work because of this reason or because of that reason. And so I think versatility on my end was one of the things that grew in me the most. So not just having a one way of doing something, but always having different avenues to go down when preparing lessons or preparing to engage the students in a way in which they can respond. And at the same time keep learning, engaging, and keep it fun. But I would say for my students, I would say one of the things that COVID has done for the students is that, naturally, as humans, we invite loneliness. Like I was saying, mentioning earlier, like we always want to be by ourselves all the time, most of the time. And so COVID, I think, showed the students that that's not really what we really, really want. And it really makes us miserable because, again, we were humans created to be in community and created to be in relationship. So I would say some students, some people, some of my students after COVID, they value being in person and hearing the laughter of their friends, seeing the smiling faces of their friends.
Yes. What suggestion do you have on how to cope with? Wait, huh? Sorry. What suggestion do you have on how to cope with like different things while in school or while doing virtual classes? Like if something happens or if you're going through like depression or ADHD or anything, what are some ways that you can cope with during class or virtual?
So what are some ways that a person can cope with? Ooh. So you say during class or during virtual, it doesn't matter?
It doesn't.
Oh, I would say the platforms, because the platforms are different, two different platforms, they'll probably take two different solutions. So for the first one, I would start with the virtual. It just depends. It depends on, again, variables. Every variable is different within the house. So I would say a person, for example, with ADHD, if that person family has family in the house while they're in school, I would say that the family members could get involved and be more intentional about watching the child and seeing, what the child is doing during the course of a day, and also being intentional about taking breaks, or walking or just stretching. We get into the habit of just sitting. In America, we live sedentary lifestyles most of the times where hours upon hours upon hours of the day, we are sitting down, whether we're reading, watching TV, eating, or whatever that we're doing. And so I would say having accountability from our family members to say, stand up, let's take a walk outside, let's go, go take the trash out. Just doing something simple like that in the midst of virtual learning. But I would say in class, and again, every teacher is different. But in my class, I'm intentional about taking brain breaks. And so, we'll learn some kind of information, and then I'll say, all right, you guys take some time to digest that and do whatever you need to process this information. But at the same time, the whole purpose of me doing this is to not overload the people, not to overload humans. I mean, because that's what we are. We are just humans. We're not robots. We can't take information upon information upon information. And so I would say for teachers or even students, maybe a student could recommend this to their teachers. Just let's take a brain break. We don't have to go hard all 40 minutes of the class period. So
I have a few more questions. Sorry.
no, great question.
What advice do you have to give to teens returning back to school in the fall that hasn't been last year? So pretty much the ones that was always virtual. What is some advice that you have for their brand new in like a big environment that they're not used to yet?
I would say that they should develop a sense of belonging. And so what I mean by that is, because we live in a society where, like, again, loneliness is something that's prized, right? Like distance, like you do your thing and I'm gonna do my own thing. I would say that those students who are going back to the school year, to the school semester, actually, they should uh, get involved, if I could say it that way, in something in the school in order to feel valued there at the school. Because I think everybody is going to come into the new school year, trying to do those same old things, but those same old things just not going to work. So I would say if a kid who has been virtual enters into the physical school year next semester, I would say, join a debate class, join a chess club, join a hobby, join a sport, do something so that you can develop a sense of belonging, so that you can develop that love for the school. Because, when you look back in 15 years, most of the people that we see on Facebook are our parents. They're still going to their high school reunions because they develop a sense of belonging. And so I would say just find purpose. Don't just go to school and go home.
So I have one question is, what advice would you give to, like, let's say, athletes, since it's different this year? Like COVID, it's changed a lot with the games and how the sport runs. And so what is your advice for, like, different athletes on how to cope with that or how to deal with that change this year?
I would say when I was an athlete, when I was in high school, when I was in college, my dad taught me, he said, kill an ant with a sledgehammer. And so basically what he was saying is that, go hard 100% of the time, every time, no matter what you're doing, whether it's in practice or whether it's in the game itself. So my first piece of advice would be, those athletes, y'all should be coming out winning scholarships in the very first year back, because y'all should have spent this last year at your houses training, not playing 2K, not on FaceTime all night, but getting some workouts in, going on some runs. But I would say for the athlete, always remember what matters first, and that's the education. Because at the end of the day, our brains are the greatest muscles that we have within our bodies. So, and then COVID showed us this, that no matter unless you LeBron James, unless you 6'6", you know what I mean, 280 pounds, and could shoot a three and dunk the ball every single time. The most important thing, and not saying anything is bad with having athletic ability at all, or the physical stature given by God, but COVID has shown us that the most important thing that matters at the end of the day is, can a person have a conversation, an intellectual, an engaging conversation with another individual in order to express and to share ideas. Because I know a bunch of athletes that weren't able to show forth their athletic ability. And in doing so, it's kind of like they were silenced in a way, because their athletic ability and their athletic talents were how they express themselves. And so I would say, remember the first things first is education. Education, and the brain is the muscle in which we should be cultivating 100% of the time. But then secondly, I would say to the athletes, go hard, kill an ant with a sledgehammer.
Yes. So my auntie said it's always how you use your mind.
Definitely.
Your mind is your key to guide you to your right path. Well, I personally don't have any more questions. If you guys have any questions, comment down below and we will ask some questions. And if Mr. James would like to answer any of the questions. If not any questions in the comments, I would like to bring back Lady Latanya back to the what is this called? Platform. I'm sorry.
Hello.
Right.
I've been enjoying everything from the background. I just want to give a shout out to, we have some of our teens in the background right now. We have Jason, Samaya, and Nia. And we had Lexa, she kind of disappeared. So they're in our studio audience right now, listening in with us. Great job, y'all. I'm like loving every moment of it. So tonight for those who are just chiming in, tonight we're talking about life as we return back to school and what that's going to look like. And we, of course, we have an inside scoop from our school teacher here, Mr. Keith James. And so if you're just listening in for the first time, we're talking about life back to school. So you can always go back and hear from the beginning if you're just tuning in. Other than that, we're just going to continue. Mr. Let me also say that he is joining the GP team. Come on, let's get some hearts, let's get some likes out there. We are so excited. He's joining the GP team. And so with that being said, you will be seeing him sometimes when it comes to for the hosting mentor. Yeah, so this we got a good balance here. So we're so excited. So show some love, um, to everyone that's out there. And so yes, we're loving it. So if Samaya and if you want to come on board, just let me know. You can show your faces, then I can bring you up as well. So we just to our studio audience, just let me know if you want to come up, and then I'll bring you up. So I'm gonna turn it over to Mr. James as he talks about life at school. So what are some things that some of the teens should be prepared for as they transition from being virtual and then having this long summer break? That's a long time without being in the classroom.
Right.
And as a teacher, of course, you have a perspective of what they expect from the youth.
Right. Right.
So what are some things you want to share to the parents and some of the teens out there to prepare themselves to coming back into the classroom possibly?
Great question. So I'll start with the students, and then I'll finish with the parents. So the first half of it is students prepare to work. Being not having to work your mind in certain ways, whether that's doing homework, whether that's studying, whatever that is in the academic sphere of school. I would say be prepared to enter back into that stream of flow, and be prepared to enter into it strong. And don't make excuses. Don't complain about how difficult it is. Because teachers at the same time are going through it as well. And I think that's one of the things in which I told my students last year is that, have some sympathy for us as teachers. But I think what'll make school more harmonious is if students enter back into school with the mindset that I'm here for a reason. I'm here for a purpose. So I would say, remember that. And for parents, I would say, kids, give them an inch, they'll take a yard. They've been out of school for a little while, not having the structure and the same order that goes into a physical school as when it's on virtual. So I would say parents, I would say challenge your kids to be more, to not be lazy, if I could say it that way. When they come home, stay on top of them, ask them how they doing in classes. Did they go to this, take advantage of the extra tutoring opportunities, things of that such.
Thank you for sharing that. Let's bring Jordy back up too. And so let's just chop it up. We're going to ask our studio audience, for those that are out there, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them and just place them in the chat. Please, teens, like and share. Some of them are actually in our studio audience right now, so maybe a little bit difficult for them to do that. But just share the information with others, because we do have great topics that is worth. What you think, Jerry? Do you think teens should be chiming in on this discussion right now?
Yes, because it's actually going out to the teens, because we're the only ones going to school. So you have some adults, but as us teens or high schoolers, it's pretty much just, this topic is pretty much given. What am I trying to say? This topic is pretty much speaking out to the teens of high school.
Yep.
I think I said that.
So Nia, Samaya, Jay-Z, if y'all have any questions, you could just put them in the private chat as well, and we can ask them. So they won't have to know who asked the questions. We'll just get your question and plug them in. So for all our teens that are out there, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. He's an actual school teacher, so this is a good time to ask. And I know sometimes this is one of the questions I hear often from my teens are some teachers have no grace for the students. Is this, would you consider this to be an ongoing discussion when it comes to the pressures that teens experience? And also, this is another question, is dealing with electronic devices in the classroom. What are some things that you see in the classroom that frustrates you as a teacher?
Definitely. All right, so I'll start with the grace question. I would say it depends. It depends. Sometimes you got to bring down justice. You got to bring down that swivel. But then at the same time, you also, just depending upon, the students in their workload. I think a good teacher has an understanding of what their kids can take and what they can endure and what's too much for them. And so a good teacher at the same time is also is cognizant of if they're being a burden to the students. So I think it's always a balance. If a teacher hasn't given homework in 2 weeks and just decides to give homework to make sure that the students are still on their P's and Q's, and Monday comes and the students haven't turned in their homework, then yeah, that's an opportunity for justice to be brought about. But at the same time, in my class, I value asking questions. So, because it's like, to me, if you're not asking questions, then I'm making an assumption, but a good assumption that you understand the information in which I'm saying clearly. And so it just depends on the students and how much effort that they're putting in. But I say I show a whole lot of grace, just like God. But the second half, some of those burdens, yeah. Oh, it's so many. I don't know where to start. I would say technology. Yeah, if I see a phone in my class, a student they get a detention, and so they understand that no technology, no. What those things called, the AirPods? No AirPods, none of those kind of things. Yes, I'm on game. I'm on a game with everything.
Okay, I have a question. So
Yeah.
some teachers allow music during work time.
Right.
You allow music during work time where you're not like giving instruction? Like, I get no AirPods or no headphones during instruction, but some kids work better. Like me personally, I work better with music in my ears. So do you allow music during work time?
Yes, but I play the music through a speaker. Yeah, it's always good music though. It's good
So
music.
not our music, like not our headphones or nothing?
Nah, not that music. Not that music. Y'all can't be trusted. You can't be trusted. You don't know what y'all might be doing. Y'all might be on FaceTime talking to y'all little boo. You never know.
Good point. We got to bring in Nia on this one. I think she chimed on. She's ready to come up and talk a little bit about this. Come on, Nia. Chime in.
Nia, help me. We're fighting for headphones, okay?
So personally, like Jarity, I like to work with music because my mind is usually all over the place, and like when the teacher is just like lecturing or something, I doodle because it helps me focus. And I mean, I'm not saying like I'm trying to be disrespectful or anything, but I think it's kind of like out there when you don't let the students listen to music, because music is a big part of my life and it helps me focus and do better. But I mean, I'm talking on my point of view because once again, I've been doing online school since 8th grade, so I listen to music.
Sorry. Especially when you're doing like homework or like assignments, or it gives you, okay, for me personally, it motivates me to do my work. This is why I always either listen to something. I have to listen to something for it to motivate me to actually turn in my homework. If I don't have no music, I'm not going to do the work, or I'm going to get sidetracked or something. So,
can I ask what type of music you play?
It depends on the mood I'm in, but mostly, let's say, Kirk Franklin or something. It just depends on the mood I'm in. If I'm in like I'm always in a holy golly happy mood, but if I'm not in a holy golly happy mood, because everybody has them days, it depends. It just depends.
Especially Kirk, he just gives you that motivation that was not there before, It
really does.
Yeah, definitely. So let me start, Neil, with your question, or really your comment. What I think is a great comment. So with music, I think as Christians, right, everything is spiritual for us. So with music, it kind of encourages us in a certain way to get over certain humps. But one of the reasons why I don't allow private headphones in my classroom is that because I want my classroom to be more so of a community, and so everything that we do, we do it as a unit. We do it as one. For example, we read outside some days when the weather permits. But if one student says, "Nah, I don't want to go outside, Mr. James, it's too hot," then we wouldn't go outside. right? And so in doing that, it's teaching the kids that love does not insist on what it wants. And so I say all that to say, when I have this music and I play it out loud, it's like we are all listening to this music together as one big family. And then at the end of the day, the kids who are doing what they're supposed to do, they always get they always get DJ privileges, and I give them the opportunity to play a song. And sometimes those songs be banging, but then sometimes I take the aux plug from them, because their music is just not vibing. But the kind of music that I play is a mixture. So I'm from New Orleans, so I play a lot of jazz, a lot of music without lyrics. Because most of the time, music. One of the things I love about music is that it's so comforting, but at the same time, when you're listening to it, it can sometimes tell you what to think through the lyrics and tell you how to feel. And so I play music with lyrics, but then most of the music, 80% of the music that I play, doesn't have lyrics. It's kind of like instrumentals, jazz, some kind of string instrument in the background like that. So what you think about that?
That's how my favorite reading teacher used to do it too. So
Yeah.
that makes me feel a little bit better, because some teachers just play like instrumentals from like 1980.
Yeah, I was in a robotics camp and all he played was jazz, and it was cool the first few weeks, and then it started getting old, and it's just like, but it's in middle school, my English teacher also did that, so I understand.
I have a question about school too.
Yes.
So I'm starting a new school in a different state, and I have like no friends now, because like I said, I've been doing online school forever. So do you have any advice for me?
Of course, I always got some advice. I would say be yourself. Be yourself. You seem like a very kind and friendly person, and you don't seem like a shy person at all. So I think that's a good thing. Like, so just be yourself. Don't overthink it either. So when you enter into the new space, don't think, should I say this or should I not say this? Because at the end of the day, a true friend is going to accept you for who you are, the good and the bad. And so I think as you're growing in life, you only want to be surrounded around people who are genuine. And the Bible teaches us, it says, surround yourself with people who pursue God with a pure heart. And so when you're being yourself, and you laughing at the things that make you laugh and not holding back your giggles, when you're talking up about the things that you have convictions about, this is going to give people the opportunity to, all right, who is this new person that has entered into our space? And then that's going to give them the opportunity to either say, okay, I want to befriend this person, or I don't. And on your end, what that's going to do is that's going to save you a whole bunch of time to figure out, between who's fake and who's the real people that you want to be around. So I would say be yourself, don't overthink, and yeah, and enjoy the moment. Don't live too far into the future. So when you get there, don't be thinking about, I'm gonna get through Friday. I can't wait to get to Friday. Enjoy each day. As Solomon says, smell of roses, smell of lilies as you walk through. It's a metaphor, but just to say, just take it slow.
Yeah, I also have some advice if you would like my advice.
Of course.
So my advice is, and what I did when I was new to a new school, is to walk in with your head high. Not that you own the place or like a little perky, but always walk with your head high. Don't look down low. Don't look all down, sad, or anything. Walk with your head high. Keep your chin up, shoulders back. Walk like you have a purpose. Walk like you have to go to class. Like, education is key. You can have fun, but education is the number one reason why you're at school. Also, always think positive. Each class you go to, always think positive. Even if some negative stuff happens in the hallway or something, think positive. Always keep your Bible on you. I learned that. Always keep your Bible on you. Pray each and every morning, and pray even after you get off the bus or even when you get home. Always pray, because that's what got me through my freshman year of high school. Prayer got me through my school. And like Mr. James said, always be yourself. Don't be like anyone else, or don't make yourself feel like, oh, I have to fit in to make friends. Just be yourself, and your friends will come to you. But like Mr. James said, make sure your friends are positive and they won't weigh you down. Or you want friends that want to see you succeed in life. You want friends that wants people to that wants to help you succeed or go to college or do whatever you want to do. So just make a circle of a positive mindset and a positive group that will makes you want to increase in life. That's my goal. It's just if you want to use it.
Thank you.
Very good advice.
We have a question from a teen, actually. It says, how would you regain your social life back in school since we have been at home most of the school year?
All right, great question. Great question. Who I would say to be alive, right? To live is to participate responsibly in the experiences of life. And so, what I mean by that is, in order to regain your social life back, right? You have to, as Jesus said, you have to love with a selfless kind of love. And so, one of the things that I alluded to earlier was I was saying, get involved to find a sense of belonging, but also figure out how you can serve at your school. Figure out how you can serve a student who is in need. Figure out how you can serve a teacher, being a teacher's assistant in any kind of way like that. And I think once people see that you're a person who's willing to give your time and sacrifice your resources in order to see other people get involved, then that's naturally going to, make you a magnet, if I could say it that way, to where people will want to gravitate towards you. And then as people gravitate towards you, then that goes your social life right there. So just figure out how can you be responsible in making sure that life flows at your school. And so that's a question that each individual will have to consider for themselves, because each space is different. So that's my advice. So bless you.
Thank you. I'm sorry. Do we have any more questions?
We have some comments. It's like, as Mr. James was talking, they were talking about teacher standards, which are very important. So thank you, Miss Marsha, for that. That is awesome.
Right.
Yes. And so someone made a comment on the YouTube side about England. So right now, England has lifted their COVID restrictions as well. So for those who are keeping up with other countries, Sergeant Griswold on YouTube, you made a comment about how restrictions were lifted in England. So it's going to be a different dynamic going back for the students that are in the UK. So for those that are watching from other countries, share what's happening in your country or within your city or community. And so on that note, I just want to give a shout out. We have some more team that has joined us in our studio audience. Mr. Charles White, welcome. Hey. And Miss Kayla. It was good to see everybody chiming in and out. Samaya still hanging in there. So thank y'all for joining and chiming in tonight and being a part of our studio audience. Thank you. So at any time, if you want to be a part and come on the platform, just let us know and we'll bring you up. All right. Or you can show your face. So tonight, we're just going to reset it for a brief moment. And we're talking about life back in school with our new mentoring host, Mr. Keith James, who is a school teacher, Mr. Keith James III. He's a school teacher, so he has firsthand information of what the student-teacher interaction can be like, what it was like, and what we expect in the fall. And so we have our students, Nia and Jerry on tonight, that are live with us, and they are doing an awesome job. So let me put it back into your hands, y'all. So anybody have any more questions or thoughts out there, please feel free to ask. Any parents, if you have any questions or need any advice as we prepare for the school year, please feel free to ask. We just want to remind everyone briefly that if you're in the Kansas City area, on this coming Sunday, which is next Sunday on the 25th, we're going to have a back to school giveaway. It will be held at Trinity Temple, 11922 Food Lane in Grandview, Missouri at 1:00. So if you need school supplies for the youth, for your teens, regardless of the age, if they're going from kindergarten all the way to high school to the 12th grade. We will have school supplies for them. So please, if you know of anyone, they're more than welcome to come. So back what school is going to look like in the fall. I know I'm a substitute teacher. So I don't have that privilege of being in the classroom every single day with the teens. But when I am, it is eventful moments, I will say. So I think there has been a shortage from what I'm finding out when it comes to substitute teachers because of COVID. Um, what kind of strain has been placed on the teachers that impact students when it comes to being in the classroom during the pandemic? What have been your experiences with that?
The strain upon the strain upon the students.
The teachers that impact the students, because sometimes students may not have that sensitivity for the teachers. They like, just teach us. That's what your job is.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know. So,
I would say one strain is in this. One of the things that I tried to be intentional about with my students is to remind the students that teachers are just humans as well. Like, yeah, we are in positions of authority, but we still cry and we still have to go home and eat. We still have to go home and take a shower. We still have to go home and sleep as well. So I think one of the things that students tend to forget is that we, just like themselves, have been students in the same positions. And so I would say, because COVID and because we live in such a consumeristic society, an impatient society where I need this and I need it now kind of society, the students growing up within this have unfortunately unconsciously conformed to that, and so that's kind of like the kind of standard that they hold their teachers to. And so I would say that's one strain that students in COVID have placed upon teachers. Because COVID, like I said earlier in the conversation, COVID has caused teachers who have created lesson plans and curriculums that they've been using for years on years. They had to shift this and turn it around in less than a week or two in order to teach it to the students. And so just the vicissitudes of life that that teachers face on a daily basis. I think students have to be just more compassionate towards their teachers in this area, and then that's going to lift up a strain, and that's at the same time it's going to do two things, just like a double-edged sword. So on one end is going to show compassion, but then on the other end is going to allow the students to sympathize with their teachers.
I have a question.
Yes.
One question is, what is the safety protocol for COVID outbreaks? Like, say one classroom has a whole bunch of COVID or positive COVID at your personal school. So, like, what is your procedure, or what do you? I don't know how to explain it. I don't know if that makes sense.
That makes sense.
But pretty much, what is the protocol on COVID outbreaks?
Yeah. So as Summit Christian, all students, we have a assigned seating chart. So that means that, and then at the end of the day, all the desks are spaced out. And so if a student does come back with a positive COVID test, then we'll know based on that seating chart who that student was around and who that student came in contact with on what day. And then even if a student gets a negative COVID test, that student will still be required to take about I think it's 14 to 17 days out of school, and then they have to take, at the end of those 14 to 17 days, they have to take another COVID test, and that one will have to be negative in order for them to return back. So that's some of the protocols that we take. But on top of that, some students wear masks, some don't. I wear my mask just because I don't want to be a risk to anyone else, but at the same time, I don't want to be exposed to the virus myself. So that's some of the protocols that we take.
We also have another question. It says, it's from a parent. It says, my son is uncomfortable in not wearing his mask. What can I do as a parent to transition my child on removing his mask?
I will first ask, why doesn't he want to move it? I think as humans, we are rational beings, so we do things for a reason. My first piece of advice would be ask the child, ask him why doesn't he want to remove his mask, and then have that conversation. I'm assuming that if he's able to express himself this way, then that means that he's of the age of reason to where he can conclude and make deductions about certain things that are going on. Maybe he feels uncomfortable in school without wearing his mask because everybody isn't wearing their masks and not taking COVID seriously. So it's so many factors. So I would say the very first step is to ask why. But then secondly, if he's taking the vaccine, um, it just depends. But I would say if he's taking the vaccine, remind him of basically not an immunity to the disease, but that he'll be less susceptible to getting the disease. So first, ask why isn't he wearing it, and then the second thing is just to remind him of the health benefits that he has already been exposed to, and one is the vaccine, or even taking nutraceuticals like vitamin C pills every day or something like that.
We also have another question from I think from someone. It says, "Do you think social climate? Sorry, do you do you think social climate in regards to racism will affect our kids?"
Yes. The short answer, yes. Unfortunately, yes. Um, because it's like I think Martin Luther King described it as the hounds of evil that chase us, and they've been chasing us for the last, our grandparents, or my parents, their parents, and so forth, all the way back to slavery days. So of course, racism unfortunately is tied into the society in which we live in. Um, well, people, God has made us diverse, but because it is diversity, the devil has then used this diversity to say one person is inferior to another person, and so forth and so forth. I would say, uh, right off the bat, social media is always takes these things and elevates them, um, and makes things worse than what they really is. But I would say one way to counter that, and to counter the negative effects of social media and racism, is to just educate your child. Read upon people who have studied these things for years and decades. Have conversations with your child about their experiences in school, not probing or not leading the child to say, all right, yeah, I experienced racism today, but to then talk about certain things, because I think as Black people, we could be sensitive sometimes, and we could be, since we are so hurt, it's like even if a person was to reach out and offer some kind of balm, if I could say it that way, to help us in our pain, we'll see that as a threat. So I would say, one hand, yes, social media elevates the racist issues that go on in the society. Secondly, we cannot live um, avoiding or turning our backs on the issue. We can't sweep it under the rug. But then, thirdly, I would say educate, and that's one of the key things that Narrow Path Initiative. That's what we do, is we educate on the issues of racism, and ethnic hatred that goes on in the society, and offer solutions on how to deal with this from a Christian standpoint, but really, and it's rooted in just love.
Thank you for that. I have a question from me. Is so racism. So during school, how do you? What would you get? What advice would you give teens or African American teens or any race teens on how to deal with racism, like different racism?
Mm, uh, how to deal with racism. First, I hope that the school in which you're at, um, racism is not permeated, it isn't flowing through. It isn't overt, if I could say it that way. It isn't out in the open. So I hope that's not the case. But I would say if it's a student who is experiencing racism, then go to a trusted adult. Uh, Go to someone that you respect and someone that you know won't necessarily just throw you into the fire, but will actually listen to what you're saying, and then seek to understand, and then go forth and try to bring about a solution. But I would say what not to do. So on one hand, is really no one thing to do, because again, each situation is different. But I would say to start with, go to a respected adult and report the problem. While I can't give a specific answer on what to do, I can give an answer on what not to do. And what not to do is to respond with hatred. To respond, we can't respond with racism, with more racism, or with name calling, or in short, just violence, whether that's physical, emotional, or just verbal violence. We have to be able to respond. We have to be able to respond with love. And in doing so, we see revolutions that change the world. Jesus came with love to change the world. And I think that's the key issue to this. So that person who is being racist toward a person, and we all understand that racism isn't just black people as the only people that can receive racism. White people can receive racism. Asian people, Indian people, all these things, all these ethnic groups, can be have ethnic hatred given towards them. But I would say report it, and then secondly, respond in love. And I know it's so easy to say because it's a theory that's in our head, but we got to come up with practical solutions on how we can respond. And also, most of the time, we see racism given towards another person. So I would say, as Christians, it's our responsibility to protect those people when we see those kind of things, to stand up for them, and to say, nah, whether my friend is going to accept it or not, I'm not going to accept it. Whether they're going to report it or not, I'm going to report it. Standing up for those people who can't speak for themselves.
Yes, in other words, of killing with kindness.
There you go.
Nia, do you have any questions you would like to ask?
Yes, I was about to say something. Dang, I forgot my question. Oh, okay. Why does schools teach only like so many things about one race? Like they teach the same exact things every year, like Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, the same people. Why don't they do other people? Because
sometimes,
it's like every single year it's something different about that person, but it's still the same topic. Like they can't choose somebody else because there's so many other things about our history
Definitely
that they don't teach, and there's people that are walking around that don't even know half of the stuff.
Right. So the first question, you say, why don't they teach more exhaustively? I would say education in America, it doesn't start within the state, right? It doesn't just start within your school. It starts at the state, and then it rises up, and then it goes to the governor, and then it all flows through certain kind of laws and certain things like that. So through the Board of Education, which is in Washington, they come up with basically the foundational curriculum that everybody, every school, every American student in the American education system, they must follow. And so I would say if we want any real change, it's gonna have to be through them. It's gonna have to say, we know about Martin Luther King, and we know about Malcolm X, but we want to learn about Ida B. Wells, and we want to learn about Howard Thurman as well. So we want these things in our curriculum. But at the same time, I think there's so many different. That's such a great question there, but it's such a big question as well. There's so many reasons on why they don't. Some are speculative, and then some also are factual. But I would say first we have to remember that it isn't the school that come up with this curriculum. It's just the school that feeds it. It's just the school that makes it palpable for the students to understand and digest it. The real issue, the real questions has to be taken up to the higher ups. But then secondly, I would challenge you, Nia, and then also your other peers, and I want you to even challenge your peers to educate yourselves. It's amazing other things that you'll read in the book. It's amazing other things that you'll learn from watching certain documentaries. And so if we're waiting on somebody else to educate us, then they'll never give us the things in which we need to truly unlock education and to free ourselves. And I think we see this played through perfectly in the example of the slaves. When they were first emancipated, they weren't given books. They weren't given a camel and a mule. They had to go and work and earn those things for themselves. And then in doing so, we see the creation of HBCUs, where it's like, okay, since we weren't allowed to be integrated into these universities and these colleges, we created our own. And so, not saying necessarily that we have to go and create our own books and things of that such, but people have already done that, and is in books today are as cheap as a candy bar. So just buy a book and learn history for ourselves, and then we can go, and then we can teach one another.
Why don't they do before slavery though? Like, because I don't know anything before slavery. I don't know anything about that. And even with other cultures, like, we barely know anything about other cultures. It's mainly Caucasian and African Americans, and that's it. Like, I don't know really anything else.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with Nia. It's like I just realized, yeah, we never learned on what led up to slavery or what happened before they discriminated us, or it was just the before in time. I was just I yeah, I agree with Nia, like, on how what happened. Like, there's a whole gap in
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, and in short, because we come into a close, I would say first, you gotta go back. You gotta go back to the higher ups, and we got to demand that they give us those pieces of those missing pieces of information. But then, secondly, we have to educate ourselves too. We can't wait. We can't wait for the next man to give us the pieces of information that we need or that we're seeking. So, I would challenge you all to start that. Start that today. Don't wait till tomorrow. Start doing that. If I could say it that way. I know that was a short answer, but short answer for a long conversation. That may be a whole conversation we have for another team talk. Dr. Stevens, maybe.
That would be, I think that would be pretty good. And this is one of the purposes of Generation Prodigy. So, for example, we actually do tours to places and to expand the cultural experiences of our youth. For example, our first tour in 2018 that we launched, they learned about Alonzo Herndon. Have y'all heard about Alonzo Herndon? One of the first millionaires in Georgia of African American descent. And no one would have known. He was in slavery. He was at the end of slavery and had to work the field at 6 years old. That next year, he prayed a prayer at the age of 6. And at age 7, that's when the Emancipation Proclamation came forth and they were able to leave. They left, but they left without a dime. He started from scratch selling peanuts on the street until he was able to accumulate a little money, started a barbershop, ended up with the largest barbershop, ended up becoming a millionaire into real estate, and ended up opening up an insurance companies, which still exists today. So they have the Alonzo Herndon home in Atlanta, Georgia, which is near the HBCUs at the AU Center. So we take individuals and youth on tours. First of all, they got to participate in Teen Talk. They have to be active and they have to maintain attendance in school. So that's what Generation Prodigy does. It does cultural education. We also deal with, we usually meet in person. When we usually have Teen Talks, we usually have Teen Talk in person, where teens are able to come together in a confidential setting and process how they're feeling, what's going on in school, and just to process whatever that's going on in their life. And they have to get permission from the parents because they may bring up situations that deals with mental health or whatever. We can process through it in that group setting. So we have a great curriculum and program when it comes to exposing youth to other parts of history that they may not get in the classroom. So we invite you to join Generation Prodigy, generationprodigy.org, and just chime into whatever information that you may be interested in. Send us an email at generationprodigy@gmail.com or info@generationprodigy.org. I don't want to take up all the time on that, but I just wanted to share that. So for parents that are out there, we have great programs for teens so they can get that exposure. Due to COVID, we missed last year, and a lot of teens were very upset. But for those who have been active participants and you're going to be in the Kansas City area, we're going to do a soft relaunch of our tours. But next year, we hope to get back full full speed ahead and back into it. So all the teens, no matter from what walk of life, if they're further away from Kansas City, they can join us too. So just wanted to share that about, put a little plug in for GP, of course. Yes.
You got one more question?
Yes, we have another. Are there any restrictions against Christians praying or discussing beliefs at school? Ooh, that's a good one.
That is restrictions, I'm assuming from the government or the school itself, right? That's why I'm gonna make the assumption that she's asking. And I would say, right off the bat, I don't know. But at the end of the day, that shouldn't, as Christians, right? People who are called to be the salt and people who are called to be the light within the world. I don't think that those restrictions should be able to restrict us from praying with our fellow brothers and sisters, but at the same time talking about these Christian things. I mean, it's at the end of the day, it's like what matters the most. You know, a conversation that could potentially shift the eternal perspective of a person, you know, being silent. So at the end of that day, I think some what's the word that I'm thinking of? It slipped my mind. Some that word is on the tip of my tongue. But I would say some ways that we can revolt as far as Christians, if I could say it that way, if I could use that word, if we can revolt, some ways is by being a light and by praying, and even in the midst of, you know, persecution, which when we can see persecution as them telling us that we can do something that God has called us to do. A light isn't meant to be lit and then placed underneath a table. A light is meant to be lit and then set on a stand for all to see. So if there are any restrictions, you know, they go over my head because I'm not going to stop praying and I'm not going to stop talking about Jesus no matter where I'm at.
There are some, I'm reading some information too that we have that there are limitations to government schools, public schools. And so, you know, they have student groups at some of the schools where there are groups that they allow student bodies to come together like they do at college campuses. They're allowing some of those in some of the schools, but it's purposeful and it's intentional. I know the teachers are not allowed to, unless it's a part of a class discussion, part of the topic. They have open discussions about religion. Students sharing their faith with a friend, that'll be their personal friend to friend communication. But nowadays, because they will have to be careful when it comes to being public, like they just can't be in the classroom and just start sharing it because they could get in trouble depending on the school. But usually if they fight the Constitution and some of the laws that put in place when it comes to taking prayer out of the school, that was taken out many years ago. There was a lady by the name of Madeline O'Hare that had prayer taken out of schools. They formed together with a lot of other people and atheists, and they had prayer taken out of the school. So that's how that started. That discussion came about. To get prayer back in the school, we would have to take is just as much for people to come together to bombard their legislation and some of the state capitals, and to where it can go even to the Supreme Court to overturn that rule. So that's just some things that has happened in times past that still exist today. So that's why prayers were taken out of the school, because they used to be in school, but prayer was actually taken out of the school when it came to part of the opening of the classroom. So it can be placed back in, but we'll have to go through the same measure that it took to get it out. So there are some limitations in the public school system. Now, the private schools, they don't have the limitations like that because it's a private school. So they're more free to share. They are going to open up for prayer, etc. So I hope that answers the question, because there are, the day and time we live in, a lot of things have shifted, and it has been fought over time.
I have a question. why would they take out prayer and, talking about God when they're teaching atheism? I think that's the correct term to kids in California right now.
It's a very good question. Very good question. I think we could do a round robin with it. And I'll just start with, it's going to be up to individuals to fight and get petitions. That's how individuals are able to get things passed when we don't know about it. And that's why part of the tours we're doing last year, not last year, but 2019, we went to Washington, D.C. So the kids can really see what happens in the House of Representatives, the state Senate, the National Senate House. Because if we don't know how laws are passed and know what to do to get a bill to become a law, we're not going to know our rights. We're not going to know what to do to make it happen. And so the atheists that are able to reinforce what they believe is because they are taking the steps to make it happen. So if your faith as a Christian and you want to be able to share your faith, or for different things to happen, we will have to have enough strength and gather people that are like-minded and have the fervor to get petitions done and signed. Get as many signatures as you can get.
Right.
As many thousands upon thousands. Start somewhere and get as many as you can and get a petition to get a bill created. And to get what you desire pushed. I'm gonna stop right there so someone else can continue.
Yes, Dr. Stephen, is to echo everything that she said. Yes, I think one of the great fallacies, then I answer the question there. I think one of the great fallacies that we face in our current culture is that we don't believe in the power of voting. People don't understand how impetus and how efficacious voting really is. It's like if you look back in history, Martin Luther King accomplished, and all those people that work with him accomplished everything that they did by the power of one voice, united in the vote. And so I would say educating, and again, that's one of the things that Narrow Path is big on, is educating people, not on just when and how to vote, but how to actually approach voting, because voting is a skill. It's not something that you do and just go and press a button. You have to be educated on how it's directly impacting you. But then I will also say from the philosophical perspective, and I want to give a spiritual perspective, is that Paul teaches that we don't wrestle against flesh and blood. And so I would say the things in which we see is a picture of the war that's going on in the invisible, where those powers that are advocating for atheism are winning. They're being more persistent than we are in our attempt through our prayers or whatever other resources that we can use to be lights. And so I think that's just the world that we live in, where people love the darkness more than they love the light. And so, again, it's our responsibility to be that light, and to stand up and to use that voice that you have and to say, nah, something isn't right here. Because I know this, and if y'all could talk about this, then why can't I talk about this, which is way better than this thing in which y'all talking about? So keep on speaking up, man. Keep on asking those tough questions. Keep on doing that. You need people like you.
We have a statement. Agree that some educational topics are required by law. I work for the federal government, and there are special emphasis program areas that are required by law that employers has to make employees aware of as well. Black history, women's history, has Hispanic or Latino, Asian American, etc. So there are some requirements by law that they have to talk about certain topics. And also, it seems like the only unacceptable religion everywhere is Christianity. Interesting. To me, that shows confirmation that Jesus is the only way, because the enemy will allow all of the names but Jesus. Thank you for answering my question. Oh, you
preach. You better preach.
It makes sense though, because everybody like hate. There's Buddhism. I don't know other religions because I'm a Christian, so I don't really focus on them. But the other religions, they're out there living their best life. But when it comes to Christianity, no, that's forbidden. We can't talk about that. And I don't know what countries, like Sweden or something, they banned the Bible because it was hate speech. That, and I'm noticing like slowly that, and like in the Bible it says in the end times, all the things that are bad will become good and good will become bad. So all the LGBTQ plus community, they're free to talk about whatever they want in school about them, but when it comes to us, we have to hold ourselves back because of our religion, and we're looked down upon because of what we believe in. And it just, I mean, as a Christian, I already know that we're gonna get hate, but like, this is a lot for my young self, and I don't want my younger family members have to go through this, because it's not fair. It's really not fair, especially being a Christian and being Black. Like, well, it's a little bit different for me because I look lighter. But it's just so much hate when it comes to Christianity, and it breaks my heart.
But like Mr. James said, that's why we have to love. We have to love no matter what. And it can be a difficult task sometimes, because when you're receiving so much hate, it can make it difficult to want to love others. But we love. So the thing is, we love beyond individual flaws. We understand it, we see it, but we have to still communicate and walk in and be the light. So it's not always going to be what you say to someone else about your faith. It's going to be a matter of the life that you live. That's going to speak louder than anything. It's going to speak louder than your words. And understand that your voice, like Mr. James was saying too, your voice is powerful. Most of the revolutions that took place, or when it comes to civil rights movement, and all of the marches and things that went on, the advocacy programs, a lot of them are youth led. Martin Luther King was in his 20s when he started off in this. He was young. We have teenagers in South Africa when they was going through apartheid. Most of those fighters, they were teenagers.
Black Panther was 16 years old, 17 years old.
Yes, they were young. So you have the energy, you have the strength. So as you're receiving your education, you can look up things like, for example, why is prayer out of the school? It will give you the information. You can Google it now, and this information will pop up. And so what can you do to overturn a law? So you can Google these things. Some of these things you get them in history class. You should anyway, but be paying attention in history class. And you can, among your friends, come together, start a petition, and then send it to your parents. Get your parents on board and get these signatures. Take it to the house. Take it to the state house. Once it goes to the state house, go to the U.S. house. So y'all got the energy, you got the passion, you got the young legs. Use them. Use your voice. I can't stress it enough. Use your voice. Yes.
Man, pray with your feet.
Yes.
Pray with your feet. That's the only way it's gonna get done. Faith without works is dead. So we could believe that change is gonna come, but we got to work for it.
That's true.
And every good thing take time and effort. So how much time and how much effort are you willing to put into it for your younger siblings, Neil?
This is a great discussion tonight. Oh my God.
It was very great. Appreciate the questions.
Anyone else have any more questions before we close for tonight? Are good? Well, thank you, Mr. James, for joining us tonight. We really appreciate you.
Looking forward to next week already.
Yes, it's on you. Yes. So everybody, he will be with us next week. He's going to be our mentor host. I will not be here next time, but he will be here next time. So yes, and we're going to have Jerry there, our teen host. You ain't going nowhere, Jerry Day.
Just go leave me. It's fine.
No, you're not going anywhere. But I'll be listening in, but y'all got this. You got this. We got Nia coming. We got some other teams that y'all got this, Y'all have some great questions. And I want to encourage every teen out there, every parent, invite other teenagers to join us, be a part. This is not all we do, but since COVID, we have been forced to kind of come online and do the virtual platform. And I know the teenagers are tired of virtual platforms. They already told us. But so we'll be in different areas as COVID is lifted and the pandemic and things open up. We're going to relaunch our Teen Talks back in person. So we do have locations that where we are, and we'll be coming to Salina soon. Yes, on the Kansas side. And so we're going to have a program out there, and we're going to be in Kansas City, Kansas. We already are in Grandview. So we partner with church groups. We partner with community centers. We partner with others too, so where you can have a Teen Talk program there. So if you want a Teen Talk program to come to your church or your community center, please send us an email at info@generationprodigy.org or generationprodigy@gmail.com. Thank you so much for joining us on tonight. Our topic was life back in school. So every question that you can think of, if you have any more questions, feel free to send us an email. And you can also watch us on YouTube. Subscribe to us. We are building our channel there. That's Generation Prodigy TV. And so come on and join us. So any other comments from our panelists before we close?
No, ma'am.
Oh. Well, thank you all for joining us. Those on Facebook and YouTube. Thank you so much. So always. So we look forward for you joining us. So if you have a teenager and you have some children that need school supplies, join us again this coming Sunday on the 25th at 1 p.m. at Trinity Temple. That's 11922 Food Lane in Grandview, Missouri. So join us there for school supplies. And without further ado, we look forward to next time. So if you want to be a part of our program, just email us. Check out our website to see all that we do, generationprodigy.org. So thank you once again, and goodbye for now. Until next time, we appreciate you. Thank you for joining us.